Welcome, Earth citizens. It's so good to be with you today and to begin our time together as we together flew over the Blanco River and joined our hearts together. I'm really interested in you and your landscape. So if you'll go down to the bottom of your uh, monitor page, you can move your cursor and see the chat box. And throughout our time together in this circle, I invite you to tell us your name and where you're listening from, and also any comment you have to begin the day. And also, as we proceed, any questions or comments that come from your heart and also from your mind. The chat box is how we're linked together, and it's a wonderful way for us to feel each other's energy. So to begin, I want to invite Judith to sing a brief meditation to bring us in connection.
Thank you, Will. Hello, everybody. So good to be with you at this time. It's a beautiful day. It's a little bit cold, but I think everybody's a little bit cold right now. So I'm going to endeavor to sing for you. Hopefully, I won't have a frog in my throat. So here we go. May your peace be an anchor in stormy times. May your hope run like a river that will never run dry. May your burdens grow light. May your worries subside. This is my prayer for you. May your soul grow deep. May your joy run wild. May your heart know the face of mercy and smile. May your faith come to let you believe like a child. This is my prayer for you. This is my prayer for you.
Thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you.
It touches me and all of us. So let's see, gosh, already we have Karen from Costa Rica. Welcome, Karen. And Heather Ash, I want to get to you in just a moment outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Randy from Florida, and Patricia and Matthew from Austin, and Jillian from Boise, Idaho. And we'll get to Dr. Joy in just a few moments. There's Ormaya. There's Madeline from Seattle, Washington. And Scott Price from these parts. Angela from Dallas. And so now we're responding to Judith's song. And so that's good. Oh, I see Linda Smith Casey from Nova Scotia, Canada. All of these are wonderful folks to join us. So I want to connect with Heather Ash for a few moments because you're just back, Heather Ash, from Peru. And I know you're a little bit under the weather today, so we won't detain you too long, but give us a little Peruvian energy to begin today.
Yeah, I just got back yesterday from a 10-day journey down to Peru and Machu Picchu and the Sacred Valley. And I think the best thing is just to give you an image. I'm a little sick, so that's why I'm horsey and all red. But there were a small group of us that hiked Huayna Picchu. And Huayna Picchu in Machu Picchu is the one that you see in the background. That's the huge mountain. And so 3 of us hiked that for 6.5 hours, all the way to the top and then all the way around the mountain. And partway down, one of the women, who's 68 years old, tripped and twisted her ankle. And she had like 3 hours to hike out. And I said, you want to go back? It's an hour down, or you can go with us 3+ hours. So she elected to go with us. And it was such a beautiful example of really, really deep camaraderie, which I'd felt the whole time in the group. But just the way that we held her together, her spirit, the way that we just as a small group just kept her spirits up and kept her moving and paused and waited. And I think that's really important for us to recognize as humans, that we all have different abilities. We're all in different places of our healing. And when we connect to nature and let ourselves be supported, then we can do things that seem impossible. So that's my blessing and my prayer for all of us today. And I'm really happy to be here with everyone, especially with Dr. Joy. Hey, girl. I'll probably turn my video off, but I'll hang out with you all.
Okay, thank you so much. So thank you for bringing some of that Peruvian energy from the Sacred Valley. It'll help us in working with our inner council, because we not only have our deep souls present today, somewhere perhaps in the shadows, we have different parts of ourselves that are showing up. And we're going to get to those in just a moment. But I also want to recognize Susanna from the United Kingdom, and Siegfried from Austria, and Diane from St. Joseph, Missouri, and people really from all over the world joining us on this very fine day. So I'm going to turn now to a clip of a conversation that Joy and I had recently. And as I go there, I just want to invite all of you to picture an inner council that you have, and you have your soul that's at the center of your council, but also there are many other parts, and we're wanting to look at those today, particularly the ones that may have learned to be prejudging in some way. I put in the chat, in my chat, that I grew up in the Southwest, and as a child, I heard many disparaging words about Hispanics, indigenous people, Afro-American people, and also women in general. It was a part of the culture. So it would be difficult for me not to have taken some of that into a sub-self that resides in my inner council. And our aim today is not to judge the judging, but rather to just see authentically how we're wrestling with this. And we see that in the United States with all kinds of racism floating to the top. And the question is, what can we do about that? And our premise today is that one of the best things we can do is to work with the part of us, each of us, that tends to prejudge. So I'll ask Joy to make some comments live, but right now I want to turn to the conversation we had earlier and use that as a way to enter into this very important subject. What can we do with self-healing the earth by healing ourselves, beginning with our own prejudice? Away we go. Today, we're going to explore a little bit the theme, the question, is the earth healing herself through our own self-healing? And more particularly for you and me, is if you and I and all of those who are listening as Earth citizens, if can we help heal the earth by healing our own prejudice?
Yeah, why not? I'm down with that.
Yeah, yeah. So you and I have covered a lot of water in our day with each other,
Yes, we have.
and I'm grateful for that.
So am
But
I.
as far as I know, we have never explored with each other any part of ourselves that might be prejudiced.
Mm-hmm. We
So,
haven't.
yeah. So I want to ask you a question.
Ask me a question.
Okay. Do you think of yourself? Well. Before I say that, in the interest of transparency, maybe we could talk a little bit about our racial background.
That's good. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
You first.
just yeah.
I didn't do
Okay.
that for a joke. I don't mind. I always do that because people always go, Joy, you go first. I can go. I know,
Okay. Well, I
Michelle.
don't. I don't mind. That's good. You asked me. I have my great grandmother was Shawnee, and my great great grandfather was a slave trader.
Wow.
So I have. I am a mongrel.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a mongrel too. Let's see. My mom's dad was a Caucasian, and he married a Native American Cherokee woman. And my mom then married African American. However, only recently, the last 6 years, we have found through DNA that she was adopted. My dad's mom. And you don't ever notice when someone's really fair skinned and they're your relative that maybe they're a different race. It's invisible to you. So it turns out that she may have been German.
Ah.
And so she was Caucasian. She married a West Indian.
So we have a little technology thing going on here.
Okay.
So let's just pick up there. We were talking about your background, and what was that like for you to discover that your family tree is not what you thought it was?
Well, so what I discovered was that my family tree was that I was an African American because I thought I was white. When I was 9 years old, I think the tape says I watched Miss America pageant. I told my family, oh, when I get older, I'm going to be on the Miss America pageant. They said, no, you're not, you're black. I went, oh, really? Anyway, I love the integration of all the of the races that I embody, and it's been both challenging and rewarding. I just feel connected to everyone.
Good, good. Yeah. So tell us the story about your best friend and
Oh, yeah.
how that unfolded.
Yeah, so I had mentioned to Will that in beginning college, I met what I would say one of my first best friends, Donna, and she was Italian American. And we were only a year apart, and we just did everything together, including on our birthday, meet at the beach at 6 a.m, share a cake. She made me 2 dresses. Our birthdays were 2 days apart. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, she was more of a sister than the sisters, biological sisters. So several years that went on. And one day she called me and she said, Joy, you got to come over to my house. I'm getting married. And I went, okay. And I jump in the car, and on the way to her house, I'm thinking, she is going to ask me to be her bridesmaid. I am so excited. I get to her house and she comes outside, which was odd. She didn't invite me in, which I've always been in her house. And she said, I got to tell you, I'm sorry that you can't come to the wedding, most of us be in the wedding, because my fiance doesn't like black people. And I went, well, wait, what? And I had my first and only out-of-body experience where I was on the side of the two of us and tears are running down both of our eyes. I think that's the only way I could probably cope with that kind of shock. It was a shock. And I went, okay. And I got in my car and I'm driving to my boyfriend's house. I'm going, I hate white people. They are so mean. Oh my God. And I walked to my boyfriend's house, who by the way is Caucasian. And his mother said to a group of friends, here's our Joy. And I went inside, dang, I guess I can't hate all white people. And it's happened many times actually in my life where I went, dang, okay, get your mind right now. She
Yes.
must be going through a lot of pain. And so I called her probably within 20 minutes of being in my boyfriend's house. And I called and said, hi, Donna. I wish you well. I hope you have a great life. And I was my typical, I'm a Pollyanna kind of girl. Like, it's okay. I'm good. See ya. And, 7 years later, somehow we got in contact. Like accidentally at the grocery store or something. And she went, I just want to tell you how sorry I am. That marriage didn't work. Surprise, right? And, we became friends again and actually still talk to each other and whatnot these days. This is, I don't know, 40 years later. But I remember telling her when she felt shame, we're talking, and I said, well, hold on a second. What you said to me really was painful. And what kind of friend lets someone off the hook in 20 seconds? I mean, who does that? I said, so I had played a part in this drama, and I want to accept my part in it. I mean, we were such good friends. Why wasn't I fighting for our friendship? So that was a good lesson. Because I went on to teach that in some of my classes when I facilitate. And people, when they first hear the story, depending upon their worldview, they say, oh, that's horrible what she did to you. Oh, I'm so, and I go, no, wait. And I tell them the rest, where they can have some insight in owning your sub voices as you're talking about the other voices that you have, so they can get some air time and see, which one you want to take over most of the time. So I like my inclusive way of being, even though I might have lapses. I stay on a good foot here.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to tell you how significant it is for me to hear you say that, to own that there was and probably still exists in the shadow a part of you that says, oh, I hate the way white people treat me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another voice that says, oh, wow, I can't hate all white people.
Mm-hmm.
Your boyfriend was white and his mother was white.
And I married him. Hello.
Oh, you did? Wow. Yeah, okay. So I also want to say that I've had considerable experience in my life with people of color. And I've had long-term friendships. And this is the first time I've ever had a person of color say I have prejudice about white people. So thank you for your courage.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I ask you a question in the just so everybody knows, you and I are winging it right now since we had some technological snafus, and I like this better anyway since we're
So do
talking. Yeah. Good. So now we have this situation in our world today where we have a president who some people say is a racist. And I wonder if you ever say prayers for the president of the United States.
I do. I do say prayers. I mean, early on, the first year, I remember thinking, I would see that sub voice say, oh, this person is no character or low character and not integrity and these hateful things. And then the other sub voice came up and said, well, there's no accident that he's there, not just because of what he believes, but also the voters who believe what he believes. Mm-hmm. So then it was like a broader kind of knowing. In fact, I remembered reading the Magus many, many decades ago, and the person writing was talking about Hitler. And I remember the one line, don't ask me about the rest of the book, but the one line that sticks with me is that it wasn't just that one person was capable of such evil, but that so many people worldwide weren't capable of good. Mm-hmm. So when I think of 45, that's a funny way of not saying the president, but anyway. When I think about him, I think about all the other 61 million people or plus. I mean, there's a lot of people who, for whatever the reason, what their stories and their lives are like, we're engaged with his messages. So I pray for everybody, people who were for Hillary, the people who were for him, and hopefully we will see the pendulum has swung so far to the right that the worst in ourselves is showing up. Not that it wasn't always there. It's my Donna story is a little example of that, not in such a huge degree nationwide, but certainly in hurt feelings. And who knows, I may have hurt her feelings by saying, okay, good, go get a life, have a good time. If the relationship was, as I know it is, really balanced between the two of us. So yes, I do pray for him. I pray for everyone.
Yeah, I really like that largeness of spirit that also includes the part of you that maybe disagrees with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
disagree, but you could disagree and not sanction. You can disagree and not hate, rather. He knows what he knows because of all the conditions for him to be who he is were present, and all the conditions for him not to be who he is were not present, and therefore he is who he is. And in some ways, well, I'll tell you what's comforting. I'd rather know all of your prejudices so I can get out of your way, or like many of the other people of color have run for Congress, do something, don't just sit around and complain. As you were speaking, I was thinking, in addition to what you do, begin to be an observer of how you're being. What is your being like? Because that's what you're with all the time.
Right. And I think it's important that we not live with the illusion that there's someone somewhere who's free of prejudice.
Yeah.
If you notice the way it happens often with cultural creatives is there's sometimes a note that there's a gleefulness that someone has been caught with their pants down,
mm-hmm.
been caught in some kind of racial impropriety.
Right.
And it's not really serving us well to be gleeful about another person's pain.
Right. Totally agree.
So that's and also I was just thinking about, as you know, when I lived in Atlanta back when you were just a tiny tot.
Well, you're delusional.
So I attended Martin Luther King's church, Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Yes.
And while I was there, he wrote the letter from the Birmingham jail. And if you recall, he did not write that letter to the racists of the South.
Mm-hmm.
He did not write that to the George Wallaces and the Lester Maddoxes. He wrote that letter to white cultural creatives,
mm-hmm.
liberal people who he knew were not willing to take the steps that needed to be taken. So
mm-hmm.
I always, having listened to some of those sermons when that was happening, I really, even to this day, am quick to look inside myself whenever I'm wanting to offer judgment for
mm-hmm.
people who are offering improper positions and statements. Now I want to shift a little bit and find out now, what has it been like for you inside your skin to experience different prejudices from people about your skin color?
Oh, that's a good one. In fact, for those of you who were able to see the Cohen hearing, the public one, and the discussion around one of the congresspersons bringing a Black woman who stood behind him as he was trying to make the case, Trump isn't president, because look, we got one. We got a Black person right here. And so being in my skin, I have certainly experienced, being mainly in the meetings that I've been in when I was younger, the only woman, the only person of color. And it was almost like, it was very challenging to climb, to be present with all these white men, many times older than myself, and to have a voice. But, I have a voice, so I would just be transparent and honest, and that actually served me well, because some white men who may be called racists, I would became a counselor to some of them, and to just tell them, you don't have to keep me on board. I'm just going to tell you the truth. When you speak to people, no matter what color they are, and you use profanity, I got to call you on it. You need to stop it, or you need to fire me. So I just had a lifelong, many people who hire me are big companies or governments, and maybe I'm known as a no-nonsense person. I don't really need to have your money. I have some friends like Will and Judith. If I came homeless, I think I'd come knocking on your door somehow. So I feel like there's plenty of places I can move, which gives me a lot of personal power to speak my truth directly. And that doesn't mean that I have the truth, but I have a position that people who are multicultural or mongrel pretty much didn't feel like they belonged anywhere. You weren't dark enough to be Black, you weren't light enough to be white. So in our teen years and maybe early 20s, there's a little isolation that can be experienced by many people who are multiracial.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you also experienced some kind of prejudice coming inside the Afro-American community that your skin wasn't dark enough.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. And so, I mean, again, up until that point, I identified strictly as African American because I didn't feel like the community, some of the girls who went, your hair's too long, what's wrong with your nose isn't wide enough, just things people do about the way that you look. So I totally embraced early in life a religion, Christianity, and just embraced it so much. Just because wrong was done to me, I didn't need to do it to someone else. So I withheld and kept the pain. If I could share it with someone, I did share it, but pretty much I would just I would actually take the higher road and find something to cherish and love about another person, even if I wasn't loved back. In fact, I remember my motto, if you have 10 people who you interact with and 9 of them are terrible, the 10 were worth the 1. You had to get through the 9 to get the 1. That's just the way that my mental model works.
It's a good model.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to an experience you had with your Italian friend, and namely when she said to you that you couldn't, I believe she said you couldn't even come inside that day. Was that correct?
No, she just came outside. I thought that was strange.
Yeah.
I didn't get to knock on the door, so she was waiting for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you said you had an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And as you know, that's a common occurrence with people who are experiencing trauma. So as you look back on it, do you see that that was a moment of racial trauma for you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Trauma, betrayal. What else could I think of? It was just so deep. She may have said other words, but I don't remember hearing them. Like if you're out of your body, like you're just trying to hold it together. There was a big pressure to just, you see my eyes, like, just hold it together. She just was talking, but I didn't hear anything else. I only remember that portion.
Yeah, good. Well, part of what I'm experiencing, and I want to ask you about it, is there's a kind of airing out of my deeper life just to say publicly, yes, I have parts of me that are prejudiced. And I wonder if you're experiencing anything like that.
Well, yes. And I think in our other conversation, I was saying things like, when I think about a Hitler or a Trump, and I think about somebody who murdered somebody, and by the way, the gentleman who impeded my son's right of way, and he died. So that's going to take me a different to breathe through that. And I mean, I forgave him as well. So just noticing that we all have a responsibility to the earth, to one another, being inhabitants of the earth, and to say that anything anyone has done, good or bad, evil, all of that, I too am capable of doing. The difference is I and others, we choose not to. But it doesn't mean that we don't have that in us, in terms of being prejudiced, in terms of being mean, in terms of judging others. And I find the more parts of myself that I embrace, the more light I feel, lighter, airier. There's space to be able to say, let's take a walk and look at the trees and talk to them. Otherwise, in the deep ugliness of some of my selves, I'd be, let me just stay here and eat Haagen-Dazs all day. So painful.
You're talking about Haagen-Dazs reminds me that you mentioned that your prejudices extend beyond skin color.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was telling you that, it took me a while to notice it. All the men I dated in my whole life were all fit, thin, even though I let you know that, I am so overweight. But I've got this mechanism. They told me once in a psychological exam, you really are normal and you use denial well. So I cannot want my guys to be overweight, but I can be whatever I am. So that's definitely a prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because
your prejudice
myself is thin, so I'm clearly not prejudiced against myself. To the other, you say, to the other.
Yeah. And I think that again, I really appreciate your courage in saying that when you select your men friends in life, you have a prejudice about weight.
Like a prejudgment.
A prejudgment.
Because since I see myself as thin, like they say, I don't know if it's true, if someone is thin, anorexic, for example, and they look in the mirror and they see themselves as obese.
Yeah.
That's the opposite disorder. I feel myself, I'm not looking, but I feel myself to be much thinner than I am. So I really have compassion for like the little cat who looks in the mirror and sees themselves as a big lion. I try to help people with their self-awareness to say, you're a nice, good cat, but you are not a lioness. So let's see how we can align what you see and what's really true in terms of what others would see, so that you can navigate your life more effectively.
Right. So just to wrap up what we're talking about thus far, I want to invite you to, if you'd say something nourishing to the part of yourself that was hurt that day and hated white people. Yeah, something kind that you would direct to that sub-self inside of you that was hurt that day.
Okay, I can see how you can say that. Really painful. And what choices do you have? I would have had more choices available to me if I knew what, the sub-self story at 18. I would have been able to say, I can see how she can say that. And then I could also acknowledge the part of me hurt, saying, but I need to go back over there and I need to have a conversation. I mean, I think she would have allowed, we would have been talking, I'm sure. But just to let it go and fly into another happy space wasn't probably the best thing for any of myself, right? To live in denial and quick fixes and.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're having a little trouble with your reception right now. So maybe it's a good place to stop and just say to you and to everybody how refreshing it is to talk with you, Joy, and for us to have a real conversation. So if we have time, we'll circle back at the end of our time together. Okay, so I want to shift now to Earth healing herself, not only of our prejudgments. See, when we prejudge, when we have racial profiles inside of ourselves, we are the Earth struggling with herself because we're all a part of Earth. But when we heal ourselves the way we have been over the last few minutes, and other people who are listening, and I'm seeing in the chat box any number of comments that indicate that we're healing ourselves through this conversation. Whenever that happens, Earth is healing herself. So I want to extend our conversation in self-healing beyond being aware of these ingested prejudgments to take time to put our hands in the soil and get a little bit dirty as a way to heal ourselves. So I want to shift that conversation to Will Turner and to Ashley Breen.
In your life right now, I was wondering, are there any kind of creative juices that are flowing? Like, I know you mentioned you're in Colorado, and you also mentioned that you do yoga and things like that. Are there any kind of creative projects or just creative energy flowing in your life right now that that you might mind sharing a little bit?
Sure. The creative aspects I've been tapping into is honestly self-healing. A lot of creativity flows in that. It's the strangest thing, but I allow creativity to flow through allowing myself to heal every day in the process of what's going on. And so I'll create from that. So photography is something that I really enjoy. So I'll take pictures of my perception or journal or allow myself to express through physical movement or sharing conversation with others and engaging creative fluidity through that so that I can learn and grow and kind of utilize it in my own personal journey. So for me, I really feel the art of conversation, the art of all the different lost arts, honestly, the art of self-healing, the art of conversation, the art of eye contact, the art of like photography, but actually having a purpose for it and seeing something that can really affect you, whether if it's just a glimpse, just like a quick or a glance. But for me, I think creativity flows in every direction, and I'm just honestly trying to channel it into healing myself so that I become clear in what I'm serving to everyone else around me. So one day at a time.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely things that the past generations did very well, and there are things that the past generations just didn't know about. For instance, sustainability and things like that, kind of stepping forward and moving towards a more earth-centered lifestyle. And so I was just wondering what your kind of thoughts are for our generation, because we're now stepping into all the spectrums of life politically and stepping into the economic systems and stepping into the workforce. So we're really going to be influencing the world for the next 50 years or so. And so what are some things to keep in mind for our generation to kind of recognize what the previous generations did right, and then also what can we do to improve and to really find a balance? Because it's not about erasing the bad things we did. It's just, I feel, about finding the balance. So what do you think about things that our generation can do to take the baton forward?
Thank you for asking what I think. That's amazing. Right? I feel very blessed to be able to share what I think. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
As for the generations and moving forward, I think it's time to get dirty, to be honest. And what is dirty? I mean, not even dirty, just get, into the soil, to be completely immersed in all aspects, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, socially. Like there's so many layers, I think, there's so many layers in the human experience. We have a tendency to play on the shallow levels. And especially as our younger generations, we just want to kind of skate or allow ourselves to be a little bit more reserved and diving deep into, all the aspects that we really need to dive into, like the earth and the importance of what sustains us, and get real with what's going on, from political to environmental to even ourselves. Like we want everything to be a specific way. I think that we create these little rivets within our mind and our psyche, but to really be honest with what we're creating and projecting out into our world around us, including our thoughts to our simplistic actions, and as a generation to finally take ownership that we are human in 2019 on earth. And it's amazing. you know, and
Mhm.
to change that perspective just by self-care or whatever tool that we can possibly get our hands on, and wherever we may be in the world, but to use your voice and to take a step back, but to get dirty, to get real.
I like how you said to put our hands in the soil and to literally and figuratively plant seeds for the future, and to kind of embrace the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, and to embrace what we've learned, and to learn to kind of find a pathway. And as we for all the Earth citizens out there tuning in, we at the Earth Tribe like to say we're stepping towards a bridge of sorts. And you can think of it kind of like how you can step from one century to the next, or one millennia to the next. In this sense, we're really stepping over a bridge into a new and completely open future that we as humans, as earthlings, first and foremost, we have the power to alter the path that we're on. And sometimes the path that you're on is good, but that it takes, like you said, stepping into the weeds and stepping into the forest and kind of getting dirty and getting your hands in the earth to move forward and find the path that we otherwise wouldn't have known existed. I just wanted to thank you, Ashley, for being with us.
So for the Earth Tribe members and everyone listening, near and far, seen and unseen, I would just like to give thanks and share gratitude for being in your frequency, being in your realm, and being able to cross your path. With honor and respect, I hope that we can learn and grow together, whether we meet or not. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this conversation can impact you in the future and in the now. And I'm filled with gratitude to be a part of a community that's making a difference and having power. I think this is something that I truly wanted to embrace in 2019. And I'm so thankful that you opened up your doors to me. My heart is filled with gratitude. So thank you so much. Love, light, and peace for having me.
To all of our Earth citizens out there, we want to thank you for being a part of this call, and there are many more to come, and we look forward to following the path and seeking the journey. So Ashley, and to all the citizens out there, until next time.
Wow. For all of us who are a little bit further along in our aging process, what a joy it is to experience that kind of energy and aliveness in two people in our midst. And I love that phrase of getting dirty, meaning not only you put your hands in the soil, but you kind of wrestle with parts of yourself that are hidden and disowned. You know, so we don't pretend that we're all completely clean. That's why we come together monthly for purification ceremonies, and others of you do different things to purify yourselves. I also want to call attention to the link that Sheila is going to put on the chat for Will Turner's new album, and you'll be able to get that. It's a wonderful album, and there are songs that particularly honor Earth and her healing. And in fact, next month we'll have a startling presentation of Earth as she sprouts forth this music that we can look forward to next month. So, and also I'm enjoying the comments that you're making, and particularly those who are commenting about the wrestling with your inner world. That's really what we want to do. And I understand that in this kind of online experience, we need to protect ourselves a little bit. And that's really why I really appreciate Joy's willingness to put herself out there, and Ashley and Will putting themselves out there. And we'll look forward to that even more so. And all of you who are making comments on the chat and putting yourself out there. So before we close today, I want to circle back to Joy and see, Joy, if you have any comments about any of this experience we've had today.
Well, I did love the members of the Earth Tribe speaking brilliantly about the earth and how they're working on getting dirty. Actually, if I had dirt in the room, I was going to put my hands in some dirty potted. So they're very inspirational young folks, which I adore. And, while some people are getting older, I happen to be getting younger. Oh, fine. I would say it reminds me of an experience I had this week when I was telling a family member that I was inviting someone else's child, happened to be my niece, to a actors workshop, which is where I am right now, another room. And this member of my family said, why would you take her? And I went, well, because she wants to go. And I'd listen longer. I think one of the things I know about what your question was is listen longer without judging. And I said, well, why do we not want to take her? And she said, well, because if my daughter gets picked, or maybe if she gets picked, then my daughter won't get picked. And I went, okay, thank you for that. So that for me feels like scarcity. Like there's so many movie parts and commercials in the world. And not only is she a relative, but I would do it with the neighbor. I'd take a neighbor to a workshop that was going to help her have some fun for the day. But I also noticed that this is a younger generation thinking like there's not enough to go around. And I think when we embrace that there's plenty to go around, there's enough of everything, especially love, for everyone. And why would one want to keep it to themselves? And I also heard her and made a point not to judge and say, I can see how that could be true. And so how can I facilitate a win-win? So there's always negotiations that we can have going on with the outside world and also our inner selves to letting that voice come out. And I mentioned to her, can one of my sub voices come out? Not pretty. And she listened to me say all the things I wanted to say, which was on the tape, by the way, Will. And I went, this is great. At the end, I'm crying, she's crying, we're hugging, but at least we had our voice we shouldn't suppress, or I don't want to suppress my little shadow sides anymore. I want them to speak, but I want them to speak with love and appreciation so that they can be heard.
Right, and I really like that underlining that there is enough of love, there's enough of consciousness that, in fact, somewhere down the line, I want us to do a program or two on the capitalism of consciousness.
Mm.
That's different from conscious capitalism.
Mm.
Conscious capitalism means we need to be more conscious about our economics.
Mm-hmm.
But what you were saying is what I mean by capitalism of consciousness, that
Mm-hmm.
if ultimately we're trading in love and compassion and awareness,
Mm-hmm.
that is not only unlimited, the more we trade in it, the bigger it gets.
Yes, it's true. It is so true.
Yeah, and so I really want to invite everybody listening today. We've got a great group of people participating. Yeah. I want to invite you to be very tender and kind toward the parts of yourself that might profile other people, whether it's because of their skin color or their politics or their religion or their waist size, whatever the profiling is going on, is not to judge that part, but rather to be kind as that part kind of comes out of the soil and out of the hidden unconscious and makes its appearance in our circle today. Because what we need to do in healing the earth is to heal those parts of ourselves, like Joy mentioned today, in healing the 18-year-old who was rejected by her good friend because of her skin color. And we all have both sides of that, both sides of that. And in that way, we become one. Our boundaries melt a little bit, and we, through our intimacy, merge together.
Lovely.
So now I want to shift gears a little bit further and go to our resident poet, Carol Flake Chapman. And also, as we begin to shift to her, that I encourage people in our midst, in our chat room, that if you have poetry, if you have something from your soul that you'd like to share in these Earth Citizens Call, that you send them to me at will@earthtribe.com. And we'll either have you on live or video or on the chat, but we want your utterances from the deeper side of yourself. I'm really, really interested in that. And I also want to applaud the honesty that we've had today.
This poem is called Before the Pills, and it was written in response not just to the opioid epidemic, but to the sense that this is part of something bigger, wider, deeper that's happening in our culture, a kind of terrible virus that calls for a really, really deep healing for ourselves, for our culture, for the world. So before the pills. Before the pills, before the accident, was the pain always there? A sadness in the bones that went undiagnosed until the pills offered release. Something to lift the darkness, whatever the cost, is so welcome to the prisoner of darkness. The pills said, you don't have to suffer. And they said, maybe this ease is the norm. They said, you can blot out all your failures to make it. They said, you have a future. They said, there is a place for you in this world that is spinning away from you, out of your reach. But they don't say, this is an illusion. They don't say they will kill you. They don't say you will never have enough. So perhaps what we have is not an epidemic of opioids, but an outbreak of pain. We count as the losses are mounting, as fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters succumb to the plagues of our age, the disease of fatal disappointment, the fear of falling through the cracks, the minefield of broken circles. These are the casualties. These are the collateral damage of a war without a cause. What then is the cure for a hole in the heart and deep wounds in the soul? Can we offer reasons to live stronger than constant craving and the promise of fast oblivion? What we need is radical healing for the viruses that have spread in our culture, in our humanity. The virus of disconnection from the earth and from each other, causing blindness to suffering. The virus that hardens the heart, shriveling hope and spreading a cancer that blights the soul. The greed that drives decisions that profits our greater good than the good of the people. It will take more than a village. It will take more than a country. It may take all the world.
Yes, thank you, Carol, for that. Yes, it will take and is taking all of us as healers of ourselves and each other. We are the earth healing herself. And next month, we raise the question, is there hope? And if so, where is our hope? we have severe climate upheaval. We have the virus that Carol just mentioned that is moving through the earth in political chaos, not just in the United States, but around the planet. And most of all, we're faced day to day with personal challenges. We run into our own sicknesses.
Mhm.
We run into our own depression and despair. And we search for hope. And again, I want to invite you who are a part of this circle today to send me at will@earthtribe.com any of your experiences of hope. Could be comments, it could be a brief story. Don't want a volume, but I would like brief stories, poems. Where is your hope? You know, there are many people today, many experts on the right and left who say it's too late.
Hmm.
On the right, we might as well just spend what we have in the earth because it's what we got. And on the left, we've already reached the tipping point, so there's no hope.
Mhm.
And so what I'm searching for is for us to wrestle inside ourselves and in our communities and say, where is our hope? I mean, let's get our hands a little dirty and say, where is our hope? Authentically, where is it showing up? And that's what we'll explore next week. And then to close, Joy, any closing comment? And thank you so much for being with us. Hope you'll come back again.
Well, I have a challenge. Everyone on the call, if you wouldn't mind, within the next 10 hours, hug at least 10 people and apologize if you have someone to apologize for. And I don't know about you. I thought of someone during the conversation, and apologize to at least 3 people that you feel like you may have offended. And then God bless you.
Mhm.
Earth bless you.
Yeah. Thank you for that challenge, and thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next month as Earth citizens.
Yes.